Hello again, it's Mr. Pete, your YouTube shop teacher, and this is number 12 of my short subject series. I want to talk a little bit about abrasives, not comprehensive at all. Mainly I want to talk about fine abrasives that you might be used for lapping and polishing and all of that, but most of you are familiar with these handy rolls in various widths like this and in various grits, and these were given to me by Bear down at Bear's Rod Shop. And again, condolences to Bear. He lost his dear wife rather recently, so give him a note if you get a chance. But he sent me these, and there's a 120 grit and a 320. Obviously the 320 is finer, but you can buy these in sheets as well, in cloth and paper, and you can even get it for a wood, but this is all metal working, and some of it is for body work at a body shop. So let's take a look at some of these. This is actually cloth and is 100 grit Norton. All of this stuff is really old. I've had it forever. But how do they arrive at the 100? Well, they have sieves or screens that are super fine. So 100 would mean there's 100 little openings per inch, I believe is what it is. Don't hold me on that. Correct me. Put a comment if you know better than I. But that's what that means. And you can tear these very easily. If it's cloth, that's nice, but the paper, all right, so that's 100 grit. That's just great for your initial roughing on a lathe or anything you're doing. But when you want something finer, we get into grits. Again, this is wet or dry. Can be used for metal or plastic or just about anything. 360 is quite fine. And then it gets even finer. There's some 400, not too much different than what I just showed you. And this is all quality stuff, 3M and Norton and so on. Here's a 500. These little sheets were made, I think, to put on the sander in a body shop, but that's for finishing work, and I mean, it is fine. You can do your nails on it, although men don't do that. All right, here's some real fine, 2,000. I can't imagine making a screen that has 2,000 openings. That's why I questioned what I said there. Again, this is 3M wet or dry. It works either way. And you can do your wet work on a granite surface plate. I don't recommend you doing it on an iron surface plate. And if 2,000 isn't fine enough, which I can't imagine, you can use crocus cloth. Now, crocus cloth is kind of hard to find, but they still do make it, and there is no grit on it, but it is the equivalent of about 1,500 or 2,000 grit. That's how fine it is. And I don't know this for sure. Correct me if you know better, but I tend to think it's about the same as, I believe this is Tripoli for buffing. I might have that wrong, so long since I bought this, but we used to use some of this at the school too on a buffing wheel. So here is the finest, and that might be too fine for a lot of what you do, and I'm not even going to mention Scotch-Brite and some of the other products that are around at this time. But let me show you how to use this. But wait, I got one more thing to show, I think, if I can find it. Well, I did find it, and I have a whole roll of this someplace, like a roll of paper towels that I used to use back when I was in my prime to clean up those plaster patterns that I made. But anyway, notice how you can see through this. It's like screen. This also is 3M, and it's 320 grit. But the beauty of this, and this has been around a long time, but you certainly won't find this at the box stores, I don't think. But in order to clean it, you just tap it like that. That worked really good with plaster. Well, who the heck is going to sand plaster besides Mr. Pete? But all right, let's talk about lapping here on a surface plate real quickly. I made a video on this Starrett rule holder. I'm not sure if it's been released yet, but watch for it or go back into the archives. But it was a little bit rusty, so I lapped it, and you can see I did a haphazard job here because I was in a hurry during the video. But starting with a very clean plate, wipe it with your hands and Windex and all kinds of stuff, and then lay this on, and again you could use it wet or dry, and clean that and try to maintain flat Don't let it lift on you, and then in a circular motion. I can't even hear that, so it's not doing a whole lot since this is, what did I say, 2,000 grit. Really, that's way, way too fine if you're trying to get some rust off. So a fella would probably want to start with, well, there's some 400. Let's see what that does. But you would work your way from a relatively coarse to finer and finer and finer until you have cleaned it up, because this was probably lapped at the factory in 1925, and then we would go to the 2000 and then finish it off with the crocus. Again, making sure that the back of the sheet is clean, and constantly wipe it off, because even if there's just a tiny speck of dust on here, as you do this, you're going to see it raise. And I can feel this really isn't cutting at all. It's just so smooth. Matter of fact, this side is rougher. Well, I hope I didn't bore you to death with a real brief talk on abrasives. See you next time. This is Mr. Pete. This is one of my abrasive shelves down here in the shop, and there's an awful lot more than this spread around the shop. Some for wood, some for metal, but I do not do all that much woodwork anymore. And there's some belts up here. Almost forgot about them.